Hello again, YouTube. As promised, I was gonna make a video about the about a mealworm container. If you remember from the last video that I made, it was this prototype, and the concept was that it would help you eliminate having to sift your mealworms, separating the frass from the material and the mealworms, like that, which is to make a bin that has a screen on the bottom of it, just like a beetle bin where it catches all the waste. Now, the reason why, now this is still the same mealworms that were in it in the last video. This is how much waste they've made so far, but it's, like I said, it was just a prototype, right? Alright, since then, I have been busy making the full-size versions of this, and I will show you what I've came up with. Let me set this out of the way. Put it somewhere I don't spill it. Alright, now, this is what I came up with. First, here's the, where you got the lid that's got holes in it so they can breathe. And of course you got your mealworms in the top and stuff like that. And I cut the bottom out of it and put a screen in it. And they've been busy, as you can see. There is a lot of frass in the bottom container. You can see that it does work. They're sifting for me, so I don't have to sift them at all. Now, I've made 6 of these bins so far. Well, actually I made 7, but only 6 of them are being used. I haven't put worms in the 6th one yet, but there's a reason for that. I wanted to show a little bit how I put them together. See, on one side, on the bottom container, all I did was drill 2 holes. First, I made the top bin first. I put the bolts in it and stuff, I put the screen in it and everything like that, made the holes in it. And then once I had that, all I did was set the top bin on top of the bottom one, so I knew where I could drill the holes at. So I marked it where the hose would go, because each bin is going to be a little different, because no two are going to be exactly the same. So if I try to do the exact same thing, the hose may not line up. So this way was to ensure that the hose lined up before I drilled them. So I put 2 holes on this side, and then to make it a little bit easier, I put a slit. First I drilled a hole in the container. Let me take this off so you can see it better. I put a slit in here, but I drilled a hole first, about the same as I did on the other side, so it matched this side. And then, of course, it's hard to do this one-handed, so sorry for the jerkiness. Alright, so I drilled a hole first, and then I cut a slit in it, so that way the bolt on this side could go down to where the hose stopped at. Well, it did fine, as you can, it's, again, I can't really do this with one hand. I'm going to try to do it the best I can, but, anyway, it allows you to pick up the top container off the bottom one, and allows you to change the bottom container. And then, so that this doesn't come off when you try to pick up the top, I made these little things. It doesn't matter what they look like. Basically, it's a scrap piece of plastic that came off the bottom when I cut the bottom out of it. It's just a scrap piece, and all I did was lay it up here to where it would go underneath that lip, and I kind of set it up there like that. And then when I held it over the bolt, I marked it with a Sharpie so I could drill the hole in it. And what this does is that when it goes underneath the lip like this, it acts like a little latch. If I can get it. There we go. See, it acts like a little latch, so when you pick it up, the whole thing comes up as one unit. You don't have to worry about spilling the bottom or anything, and those holes that are holding the other end keeps it from popping out, so it won't go nowhere. So you just kind of slip them. If I can do this one-handed, I usually do this with both hands, but I'm going to try. There we go. Just kind of stick them in there like that, and it latches in place, and it ain't going nowhere. So now you can pick up the whole unit as one unit, and it's not going anywhere. So you can pick it up from the top like this, and you don't have to worry about dropping the bottom. It's all one unit now. It's like, its own catch bin that catches the waste, and you got the bin with the worms in it. And I like that idea a whole lot, and it's actually worked really well. And to prove that, I did a clean out just a little bit ago on 5 of these bins. Now this one I haven't cleaned out yet, so you can see there's still a lot of frass in the bottom of it. And when it starts touching the screen on the bottom of the container, when it starts touching the screen up here at the bottom, when there's like a little mound of material, it'll be time to change it. So then I'll unhook it and I'll dump it into another bin, which is what this is. Now, this material is the waste that came out of the other bins. See, I got these 3 here. I've already cleaned these out. And I got another one sitting right there that I just put the prototype sitting on top of. So here's 4. There's a 5th one right there. Oops, too close. And I still have the waste bin, which I haven't cleaned out yet. I ain't got time to do it yet. I'm going to do it around Christmas break when I'm off from work for, I don't know how long we'll be off, but I hope it'll be a while. And I'll have time to sift that and get all the worms out of it. There's worms in it, but I'll get to that later. But there's another bin right there. So that's 5. And then this is number 6. Now, all this waste came out of the other 5 bins. The other bins that I just showed you. And I give you a couple seconds to guess how long it took me to take the waste material out of each bin. Let's say I got 5 bins. Now if you did it the old way, you sifted it out the old way, you take the worms out and you sift them through a strainer, you're looking at a good hour, maybe hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. Depending on how much material you have, depending on how many worms you got, how much frass you have. The normal way is to sift it through a strainer. And if you got that many worms, you got this many mealworms, there's these 3, and then you got that one, and then the other one right there. You're looking at a good hour to do a good sifting. Okay, well, the new way that I'm doing it, which is this way, it just takes about 30 seconds to unlatch the latches here, maybe 10 seconds at the most, and you detach the top from the bottom, and then you take the bottom one. Of course, you take the top one, you want to put it on an empty container, because when you take this off, you need somewhere to set this top one so you don't drop material on your floor. So I use a smaller container like this one. It's nothing been done to it, it's just an empty container. I haven't modified it or anything like that. And I just set the top one on top of it so any waste that drops out while I'm cleaning the bottom one doesn't go all over the floor. I take the bottom one, takes about 3 seconds, and I dump it in here. So roughly I cleaned out 5 bins of waste in about 2 minutes. Maybe 5 minutes max, about a minute to a container. So roughly around 1 minute per container is how long it took me to clean out 5 bins. The mealworms did all the sifting for me. All their waste went down to the bottom. All I had to do was change the bottom and dump it. That's it. Now the reason why I'm not going to dump this material yet is because it may have little baby worms in it. Now I don't know if it does or not, because for whatever reason, my mealworms, they seem to grow at different rates. Even though they may have came from the same clutch of worms and stuff like that, or mealworms, for whatever reason, I have different size mealworms all in the same container. Even though they were hatched at the same time, they all grew up together and everything. Every now and then you'll find some that are stunted in their growth. And they'll take their time, and they'll be a little slower growing, and they'll be smaller. So every now and then you may actually find 1 or 2 that might actually drop down. They may find their way through the screen. The hose might be big enough for them to fit through, so that's why I'm hanging on to this frass until I know for sure that I got all the worms out. But to show you a little bit better idea of the materials that I used to make this container, so you get a little bit better idea as far as what I used. got one of these, which is a smaller container. Now this hasn't been touched yet. It hasn't been modified. I'm just, to show you what it is. It's a Sterilite 6.2 quart, 5.9 liter. And then I got this big one, which it too has not been modified yet. It's still just like you buy it in a store. It's a 12.7 quart, 12 liter container. Of course, you need the lid too, so it's sitting over somewhere. Alright, you also need some screening, and at the moment I can't think of what size it is. It's this kind of screening, and this is one that's already been measured and cut, ready to go on the bottom once I cut the bottom out of the container. You see how thin it is and what hose it was. You see it if it'll focus. See, it's got the small hose in it, and I use that kind of screening. And the bolts that I use, now all this is bought at Walmart, believe it or not, but sometimes they don't have this stuff all at the same time, so you may have to take multiple trips, or different, if you got more than one Walmart, you may have to take multiple trips. So these are the bolts I use. They already got the nuts and they got the bolts with them. But you also need washers to go with them too. See if I can focus a little better. Gives you a little idea what kind of, they're machine screws, but there were some longer ones that I used on the beetle bins, so I wanted some that were smaller for the worm bins. So there's these, and then for the washers to match, these are the washers that I got. So these are also machine, well, this ain't right, these are machine, well, the washers that go with them are that. Sorry about that, I got something a little mixed up. But anyway, these are the washers I use, but I don't really, basically when you're looking for washers, you try to find, see in this case is, come on, focus. You see where it says number 8? Tells you what size. Well, you get washers that have a number 8 on them, and that's what these are. They show a number 8 that goes with this. I had extra washers from when I made the other bin, and that's why they're in this baggie. So I threw the other bag away. I should have kept it so I could show you what they were, but basically it's a number 8 is the size, and that's the washers you want them to match with the bolts. So that's what I used. And then there's the lid you want to make for making the hose and the lid. And then when you finally do cut the bottom out of the bottom of the container, here's the excess plastic. Now you remember those little latches I made on the front right there? This is where they came from. I cut them off of that, and I made these little latches to go on there. Okay, let me get this out of the way. And it's hard to do this one-handed, so I'm doing what I can. Now here's another bin that I made that does not have nothing in it yet. Now the worms that are going in this one is going to be that top drawer right there. That top drawer right there that I feed Rango out of. Those worms are going to go in this one. But I haven't had time to do it yet. I might do it on the next weekend, or I might do it when I'm off for Christmas. Alright, now this gives you a little bit better idea of what I've done, because it's hard to see, when you get the worms in it, it shows you what they look like, but now you get to see, yes, the screen in this one's a little bit denser than the other ones, because I couldn't find them with the screening. They were sold out of it, so I had to go with the next one, which was this, and I didn't really like it, but that's what they had, that's all I could get. So I have a roll of this stuff, and it's kind of denser, but the holes are about the same size. So as you can see, all the bolts are tightened up. They got the lock washers in them, and the reason for the, not lock washers, but the flat washers that go in there, there's a reason for that. If you try to put these bolts in that plastic and you tighten them up, they could pull right through the plastic, and that's the reason why I put the washers on them, so they don't pull through. And the screen is nice and tight. See, it's got nice tension on it, and that's what the bolts are for. And as I was putting each bolt in, I had to, once you cut the bottom out, you have to drill the holes in it for these bolts, and you make sure you got the same drill bit for these bolts to go through. You want it to be as snug as possible, but you don't want it to be really super tight going in. You want it to be where it can go in and out, but you don't want it to be so super tight that you can't really push it through the plastic without damaging it. So you want it to be the same size as drill bit that the bolts are, so you drill the holes all the way around after you cut the opening. Or you can drill them before you cut, it doesn't matter. But it might be easier if you go ahead and cut the bottom first and then go back and drill, just in case, you know, with me on one of the other bends, the utility knife I used kind of slipped. And it made a little gash in the side right about here on one of the other bends, but it was salvageable and I was able to keep it because of the way I drilled the hose. So there's this. And a little bit closer look. Of course, it's got the little latches already on this one that I made. And the camera's not focusing right now. Sorry. I can't get the thing to focus. There we go. And see, once you make your little clips, they act like a little latch. And they go underneath the lip to help catch to keep the bottom end from falling off once you got it attached. See, they stay like that. So it's like its own little, it's like a suitcase kind of thing, you know, it's got a latch on it. But once they're on there, it's not going nowhere. And when you pick up the container, because there's no slits on this side, just two holes, when you pick it up, it ain't going nowhere. It don't matter how much you pull on this is not going to come out. That's why if they're long enough, you don't have to worry about them pulling out when you pick up the top. So this side, it's going to stay in place because it's just holes holding it in place. But that's pretty much it on that, on how I made the containers. And I'm happy with it. I really haven't found no... there is one thing though. I thought about it after I made the containers, and it happened a couple hours ago before this video. I can still customize this even more if I decide to. And what I'm talking about is that you see how shallow the bottom bend is? You can, if you decide to take this route like I did, you can still make the bottom one the same exact way. But if you take another full-size container like this one and attach it to the bottom one, it still worked exactly the same way. It depends on how much frass you want to hold in the bottom. Now I'm assuming, depending on how many worms you have, mealworms you have in the top, depends on how much waste material you're going to get in the bottom. If you have a couple hundred in there, it probably might take a few months before this fills up in the bottom. If you have a few thousand in here, it might be different. It may go through a lot of material very rapidly. But you see how well it works. It works really well. It catches a lot of waste material, and it does. Now they've been at this, I don't know how many mealworms are in this one container. They've been at this now for, I want to say, probably about 4 weeks now. And they've been really busy. So the good thing is, all I have to do when I get ready to clean it, I just undo the latches and take the bottom bend and dump it, and it takes me about a minute. Now if I did it the old way, it might take me an hour. So which way do you think would be better? You let the worms do all the sifting for you and you just dump the bottom bend, or would you prefer to do it the old way? Just take a strainer, spend about an hour, 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how many worms you got, depends on how much material, how much waste. You sift it through a strainer, do all that cleanup, and it might take you about an hour by the time you get done. You do it this way, it might take you 2 minutes. Same material, same amount of stuff. You don't have to dump this top part. You can actually leave the lid and everything on the top. Only thing you have to do is detach the bottom half of it, dump the material, reattach it, and lock it back down, and you're done. And if the material's low up here, just add some more oatmeal to it. Add a carrot. Every once in a while, I might want to add this in there. Every once in a while, just like any other worm bend, you may want to run your hands through this to make sure it's not clumping up. You want to make sure it's not getting compacted and getting hard, because that does happen over time with oatmeal. So every now and then, maybe once or a couple times a week, you want to run your hands through it to make sure it's not compacting and make sure it's still loose and they can still crawl through it and everything like that. I have found one other issue that I could tell with doing this way. or making this worm bin. There is one little issue I have found that doesn't do it with the beetle bin, but it only seems to do it with this one. Up in here, I think I've only seen it twice since I've made these bins. I've made these about a month ago, and so they've been going through their run right now for about a month. The only issue I could really tell is that every now and then you might actually find a mealworm that might try to crawl through the screen, get in between the screen and the bin, and actually try to crawl out through this opening right here, through the screen part of this, come up right here and come out. That's the only issue I could find, but I've only found maybe 2 worms that done that. In about a month's time, I've only found 2 worms that actually try to get out. But they'd be on the carpet, and I just pick them up and put them back in their bin. So if you have that same issue, what I might end up doing is changing this bottom bin. For now, I'm going to leave it like it is because I like it. But I'm going to leave it open to an idea that I may end up making this bottom bin about the same size as this one. So that way the top one can actually go a little deeper in, like the beetle bins are. They're about this deep into the other bin underneath it. I might do the same thing with these, but use the same size bin as this and make it where the bottom bin might be up here somewhere. So that way if they do climb out, they won't go very far because they'll be caught in the top part. I may end up doing that in about a month or so. I don't know yet. If I decide to change it, I'll make another video, I promise, okay? I guess that covers the information on the new mealworm bins that I don't really know what to call them, actually. I mean, it's a new thing, so I guess you can call it a self-sifting container, mealworm container. Self-sifting, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Now I'm tongue-tied, sorry. Self-sifting mealworm container. There we go, I got it. I might change that too. Okay. There's something else I want to add to the video real quick before I run out of space on the film. I know this is a long video, so I'm going to try to add this quick comment real quick. The stuff that I've read on the mealworm forums, when they were talking about when mealworms separate, when they pupate, and I've read on different kinds of forums, it may be for chickens, it might be for reptiles, it might be for fish or whatever. People that are raising mealworms for various different things have a very similar question. Now their question, just like me, I'm always trying to figure this part out, and I haven't figured it out yet. And there are probably other people that want to figure this situation out too. The question that seems to be a common thing, is there a faster way to separate mealworms from pupae after they pupate? My current situation, and probably pretty much everybody else that raises mealworms, is that I have to handpick every one of my pupae out of my mealworms. I have yet to find a solution to this dilemma, and neither has a bunch of other people that have been trying to ask that same exact question. So that is a new challenge, trying to figure out an answer to it. Is there a faster way to separate pupae from mealworms after they turn into pupae? So I'm going to leave it an open discussion kind of thing below this video for anybody that comes up with any kind of idea that I might be willing to try. If you come up with an idea and I decide to use that idea, or if you have a video that you'd like to show me there's a faster way to separate pupae from mealworms and you want to share it, feel free to share it and put a link on, underneath this video, and I will make sure that you get the credit for it if you come up before I do. If you come up with the idea and you come up with an answer to this question, anybody that's watching this video that comes up with a solution that will allow you to separate mealworms from pupae as soon as they turn into pupae, without me having to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, go through every bin and have to hand pick every single one of them. if there's a solution, like maybe putting something small in there for the worms that are going to pupate so they'll crawl in there, then that would be a good idea too. But usually the only thing I've really been able to find that's been tried, they say put layers of newspaper in there, and when they get rid of the pupae, they'll climb on top of the newspaper. Well, it might work with some situations, but with my circumstances, for some reason, my mealworms want to eat the newspaper. I don't know why. They just want to eat the newspaper. And they'll crawl up on top of the newspaper, but they will eat holes in it. They won't sit up there and pupate. They'll actually get underneath it, and they'll pupate, and they'll go off to the side of it and pupate, and they'll just do what they normally do, but they'll eat the newspaper too. So that idea don't work for me. But I guess that's it in a nutshell, I guess, as far as the challenge, trying to figure out a solution to separate mealworms from pupae. That's my next challenge, trying to figure out what to do. So if anybody else has any ideas on how to come up with a solution to that, or something to try, I'm open to it. You know, I'll be willing to, you know, I figure if everybody that's watching this, or anybody that watches these kind of videos, that if we all put our heads together, we might actually come up with a solution to this problem, trying to separate mealworms from pupae. If you like to separate yours, I like to separate mine. So, you know, I still like to separate mine. And a quick little thing on the beetles real quick. You think I got enough beetles? I believe so. And this one's full too, by the way. It's all full of beetles. But there's substrate in there too, you just can't see it. They're covering it up. So, but, oh, I almost forgot. The worms that are still in this, and the worms that are in that bottom one, and the mealworms that are in those two bottom drawers right there, those are full of baby worms. They're babies. They're too little to put in here because of the size of the screening. They're so small that they would actually go through there and end up in the waste bin. So you still need to, when your worms get bigger, when they come out of this, when they get a little bit bigger, see, they're still small in there, but there's some medium-sized ones in there too. So when they get a certain size, you can actually take these out, including the substrate, and dump it into one of these kind of containers like this, so they will finish sifting out their own material. And that's basically all you'd have to do. But when you got babies, like I do in those two drawers down there, they're still so small you can't even hardly see them. Now that top one, like as I said, I haven't moved them yet because they're going to go in this one. But I haven't had a chance to do it yet, so I'm going to leave them in there for now, for a little while anyway. But the challenge about the pupae and stuff is still open to anybody that might come up with a solution. I'm open to any solution to try something that, you know, you see how I try to figure things out with these mealworms and stuff. You know, it's just one of those things, trying to figure out a problem, trying to figure out a solution to a problem. So apparently it's a very similar problem with anybody that raises mealworms, is how do you separate the pupae from the mealworms in a faster way? There's got to be a way. You know, maybe if we all put our heads together, we'll come up with something that will work, and we can all figure it out if we all think about it. You know, it's just an open challenge for anybody that's willing to, you know, put our heads together. Maybe we'll come up with something. You know, this is an open thing to anybody that wants to try to tackle that solution. You know, I'm still thinking on ways of trying to figure it out, but I have yet to find anything that works. So, I guess that's it. I'm sorry about the video being so long, but there's a lot of information there. I haven't really thought of anything else that I need to add to the video. Everything I think is about these bins, I'm happy with them. And they work really well. And they look alright too. They don't look too bad either. So they're functional, and they look, you know, it's like one whole unit. When you pick it up, the whole thing picks up. It's attached to the bottom with, you know, with that. So they work really well. And they do really good. And this is all from just watching the mealworms, just from observing them and figuring out, you know, they need something like this to sift themselves out, and it'll save time. And as I said, I cleaned out 5 bins in about 5 minutes. You know, versus the old way, which would have taken an hour and a half to 2 hours to clean them. You know, the old way, you'd have to sift them out and strain them and everything else, and that takes a lot of time. But now I was trying to figure out a way to separate mealworms from pupae as soon as they turn into pupae. So that's the next challenge, I think. But I don't know if I'll be able to figure this one out on my own, so I'm asking, you know, reaching out for everybody that's watching this, if y'all want to try to tackle this solution. Apparently there's other people asking the same question, so anybody that's watching this wants to try to tackle this, please, you know, maybe if we all put our heads together, we'll come up with something, okay? Well, thanks for watching, and rate and vote on my, or whatever they call that, a thumbs up or whatever. Sorry. But I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. Until next time, until I make another video. I don't know when that'll be, so as promised, here's the new thing. But there it is in all its glory. But thanks for watching, and I thank everybody that's been watching my videos and giving me, you know, good comments and asking questions and things like that. You know, I thank everybody for, even if you don't subscribe, or if you do, you know, I thank everybody for that's been helpful and supportive. And you know, I try to do my best on the videos as I can, so everybody likes what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep doing it as long as everybody continues to like what I'm doing. So I enjoy it, and I know y'all enjoy watching the videos. So thanks for watching, and comment and vote, and till next time.